Joseph Newgarden, the 2019 IndyCar Series champion, everyone.
Win the championships is, I think, as much as you could ask for in the year, so I'm just so thankful to the team. I'm so happy. I was crying that whole lap.
With another unforgettable season etched into the history books, the NTT INDYCAR Series roars into a new decade. Change is in the air. The arrival of the Red Bull Advanced Technologies Aeroscreen ushers in a new era of IndyCar innovation, and each driver is now shielded by the latest in cutting-edge safety technology. Driver lineups have changed throughout the paddock, and while some veterans find themselves in new cockpits, a host of talented rookies have their sights set on IndyCar glory. Richmond Raceway returns to the IndyCar calendar after an 11-year absence, and expectations for its short oval spectacle are high. The 2020 IndyCar season is just one short month away from firing engines in anger on the streets of St. Petersburg. But plenty of work remains to be done, and Austin, Texas is where it begins. Day one of NTT IndyCar Series testing at Circuit of the Americas starts right now.
For the NTT IndyCar Series. Welcome to Circuit of the Americas and Austin, Texas for spring training and the open test. 2 days of on-track activity. Plenty of new faces, familiar faces in new places. And the latest innovation in safety will be unveiled for the full field today. The Penske era begins as the new steward of IndyCar in the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and so many other stories. It is a cloudy, misty, wet, and cold morning. 44 degrees, but activity already underway, and the reigning champion in the #1 Hitachi Chevy for Penske Racing. It's Joseph Newgarden out on track for what we think will just be an install lap. Hello, welcome, thanks for joining us. Good morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, Central Time, I should say, 11 a.m. Eastern. I'm Kevin Lee, and I have 48, I think it is, IndyCar wins in the booth with me today.
We got
Paul
a rookie.
Tracy.
We got a rookie in the booth.
And a rookie broadcaster who failed to bring donuts
broadcaster.
on his first day. Boo! Tony Kanaan is here.
I'll bring it tomorrow.
Well, good for you. You're coming back tomorrow. Paul's only with us today. Katie Hargett will join us in a few minutes. Jake Query is here as well. The first day of school, everybody's excited, Paul.
Oh, it's super cool to see these cars on track with the new windscreen. And this is kind of a, not ideal conditions, but this is probably the most important test, I think, because of the weather conditions for this windscreen, Tony, because the big question mark is how will this thing perform in the rain? How will the water come off of the windshield? Will there be fogging inside of there? It's cold. The cars get hot. There's temperature comes up through the car, creating, a heat zone inside the cockpit. Will that fog the windscreen? So this is, you can see Joseph there getting all sideways. Really tricky conditions right now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is a good day to test the anti-fog on the windscreen. I don't see that running much right now, Paul, because of the temperature, but we talked about tear-offs this morning with the teams. They got actually educated how to use them and how to peel them off, which that it doesn't matter the tear-off here because the water, we're going to have to see how the water actually is going to act once it hit the windscreen. So we'll see what's going to happen today. Interesting day. I mean, everybody's on track, exciting. I'm not surprised that Penske was the first car out. They always try to do that, but so far I think we will see everybody doing an installation lap today to be ready for whenever the track temp is up and then go testing.
See right there's been some repaving here. You can see that a lot of the track is very weathered looking. This whole front section here has been repaved. It was very bumpy in the brake zone. So they've done some improvements over the winter. You'll see all this new pavement here, but then as you get around to the back side of the course, you'll see the track condition is very, right here, you can see the pavement's very weathered. You can see a lot of stone through the pavement.
It's funny because they repaved some parts of the track that were bumpy, but I did a recon lap or the track walk 2 days ago, yesterday, and we they didn't repave the quick S's, which was the biggest bumps that we had. So, which is funny. I don't know how that was that option that we that they decided to pave one part and not the other part.
There's Simon Pagenaud in those familiar Menards colors for Team Penske. They have a fourth driver here that we'll introduce you to here coming up in a little bit. There are new drivers, some just confirmed yesterday, that are taking part in the test, as the
very slippery there.
Install lap could even be a bit treacherous so far.
Actually, he's running. I mean, he already did a lap.
44 degrees is the current temperature. It's not raining too much right now, but for more, let's get some reporter on the street type information now. We're in the comfy, warm booth. Let's check in with Katie Hargett, who's down on pit lane, trying to stay as warm as possible. Good morning, Katie.
Katie, what's the word on the street? I don't think she hears us. Katie, what's the word on the street?
So it's not exactly ideal conditions down here on pit lane. We've got an air temperature of 44 degrees, track temperature of 55 degrees, and it is spitting just a little bit. So as you guys have mentioned, we are expecting install laps from pretty much the entire field, including our reigning champion, Joseph Newgarden, who is out on track right now. I checked in with his crew chief, Travis Law, and he told me if it's extremely rainy today, we would like to practice in order to get some experience with the aero screen and the puddles. And if it's dry, we would also like to practice, of course, because of obvious reasons. But if it continues to do just kind of this misting thing, they do expect to pull it back in the garage and just kind of play that wait and see game. So for now, we'll just watch these install laps, and we'll check in with our reigning champion, Joseph Newgarden, once he gets back.
So the high today is expected to only be 49 degrees. So there are still things to learn. But I think we may have to wait until tomorrow, and then tomorrow the forecast is still a little bit ominous. So it's not ideal, but they can still get something out of this like you talked about. They need to find out what the windscreens do when it's wet.
A lot of mods done to this car for the aero screen. You see the holes. If we can get back to that shot of Will Power, there's two holes, Tony, in the front of the nose that they've put in there, and then there's a nacoduct in the very front of the aero screen to push air through the cockpit. You haven't driven the car yet, but from what I've heard from all the guys is that it's the guys that have run down in Sebring in warm conditions, but not hot. The car is very hot inside.
Yeah,
so that's going to be a big adjustment for these guys.
100%. And then they also have this air vent that they actually installed, and like we're wearing helmets like the touring car guys now. You see the duct on the top of the helmet, and we have a little connector that actually will suck air into your helmet to cool you off. So I don't think they're using today because the weather is it's quite cold. And I have to say, Paul, you remember how our hands used to get frozen?
Yeah.
So now they're definitely not. So today is it's an advantage.
There's one of the new looks this year, the number 10 NTT Data car for Felix Rosenquist and Chip Ganassi Racing. One of the three cars in their stable. Tony is familiar with those colors and still has a strong relationship with NTT Data. I like the looks of some of the cars that we saw yesterday. Some are very familiar, and a few unique looks that we'll see throughout the day today and tomorrow.
Yeah, this is a situation I really believe that we're going to see the guys who have prepared and trained for this through the winter, like you, Tony, that when we get into the hot summer months, you do a lot. I mean, one would say that you're probably the fittest guy in motorsports. You run, you bike, you swim, you do everything. You do a lot of your cycling indoors in room temperature, and you're sweating like an animal when you're done. After 2-3 hours that you've done on a bike, I'm sure you have a pool of water on the ground. And the guys who are training, getting prepared for these conditions, I think it's really going to show once we get into the summer months.
That's board day, the 14th. Actually, PT, I started since the windscreen, and when I talked to Dixon about it, once a week. I don't do it for lengthy hours, but I actually have a little heater inside the house, and I put in front of my bike, and I have the heater on for 1 hour, and I bike.
Really?
So I can actually get used to the hot conditions doing some indoor training. So when we get to the summer, you know, I don't struggle in the car, especially that I'm not driving it every race.
Yeah, now remember, these drivers are used to open cockpit, they're used to airflow, they're used to the, you know, the ambient temperature flowing over their body through the suit. The suits nowadays are very, very light, they're very breathable. Now you've cut off all of that airflow in the cockpit, and the heat coming from the engine and the radiators, which are basically right at your hips, all that heat is getting sucked into the cockpit because it's a low pressure zone now inside the cockpit. So it's going to raise the temperature of these cars. We don't know what the final number is going to be, but you know, guys are saying it's hot inside the car, like a closed cockpit car, like what would be either a GT car or a NASCAR. So it'll be interesting when we get into the big hot races that we have, like Texas is always very hot, Iowa, Toronto, Mid-Ohio, those kind of places where the summer months are very hot.
By the way, the forecast is a little bit better tomorrow. 61 is the expected high with some rain in the morning, but drier tomorrow. There's Scott Dixon, the 5-time champion.
He's been a busy guy over the winter, did the 24 hours of Daytona, just got back from Bathurst, said he had a blast over there, loved the track. The car was a little bit of a handful to drive, but he's been busy all winter getting ready for today.
And had a baby.
Yeah, and had a baby. So busy guy.
See, Kevin, they're all obviously doing an install lap. Newgarden is the only one that did a full lap, and I think now they're going to wait for Firestone to see.
That's the 2 car. So that was Joseph Newgarden's car last year, but this is Scott McLaughlin. He is a motorsports superstar, new to America, did an IndyCar test at Sebring last month. He is the 2-time defending Virgin Australia Supercars champion. He's going to be in a 4th car for Team Penske at the Grand Prix race on the road course at Indianapolis. Talk more about Scott in just a moment. The driver of that car last year won the championship, so he's in the number 1, and Joseph Newgarden is with Katie Hargan.
Hey, Kevin, yeah, the reigning champion, Joseph Newgarden, just hopped out of his car after some install laps here at COTA. Obviously, Joseph, hard to learn anything in just an install lap, but what are your initial impressions of the aero screen?
Well, I didn't have any issues with the aero screen. It was more the temperature. I think it's a little cold right now for us on these tires. Normally we have a 50-50 rule where 50 ambient, 50 track. And it was tough just to do an install check. They said to do one time by, and I about wrecked the car 6 times just trying to get around a lap and a half. So it's a challenge. You know, we had our hands full there. I think we'll get some wet running in most likely, just because, like you asked, the aero screen is new. We don't have any answers on that for what it's like in the rain or if we're going to have any issues. But for me, it wasn't a big problem. I mean, it felt fine. Visibility was no issue. So it's just going to be a matter of getting the car to work well in wet conditions now.
Okay, the negative side is this weather isn't ideal. On the positive side, reigning champion, now a 2-time champion, and you got married in the off season.
Yes. Yeah, it was a busy off season. Busy for you too, right? You got engaged, so
thank you.
Yeah, congrats. You know, but we're focused on this year. We put last year in the past. I'm pretty bad about that. Literally, the season, you know, ended at Laguna last year, and I was already ready to just go to the next race. So I'm not good about celebrating, but I'm ready to go. You know, 2020 hopefully will be another good year for us. We don't know. Like I said, there's new challenges with this aero screen. I think the setups are going to change, the driving style is going to change, so it's just a matter of if we can get on top of that quicker than everybody else.
I feel like there's always something you can learn from one race to the next, from one season to the next. What are you bringing into 2020 that you did learn from that championship season?
We try and build on our consistency. You know, we had sort of an interesting year in 2017 where we just got better through the year. Then 18 was kind of all over the place, and then 19 was very consistent. So I think if we can just build on the consistency we had last year, make it even just a tick better, I think we should be in good shape for 2020.
All right, your car's headed back to the garage. What's the rest of the day look like for you?
I'm not sure yet. It kind of depends on what my teammates think. I think it depends on what the weather does here, but we've got to run a little bit, like I said, even if it's going to be wet, just because we need the information. But we're hoping for tomorrow to be a bit drier than today. One
more quick note about your teammates. Just announced Scott McLaughlin will join you guys for the IndyCar Grand Prix in May. What do you feel about about that, or how do you feel about that?
I'm excited. First off, I think Scott deserves it. He's worked his butt off. He's done such a great job in supercars. I mean, he's the class of the field, no doubt, so he's earned his opportunity. I think we're all excited to see how he gets on, but we can't be too hard on him. Look, he's got one race. It's very difficult to come into IndyCar and learn all the nuances within one race, so I think if he top 10s at the GP, we're all going to be over the moon for him. But he's an incredible driver. I think he's going to do a great job.
Thanks, Joseph. Good to see you. We'll talk to you later.
PT, TK, what is realistic for Scott McLaughlin? He doesn't have much Formula car experience. Basically, Formula Fords. F1600 level is what he had driven many years ago, and he's been in dominant superstar in supercars, but he's had one day in an IndyCar before today.
Yeah, pretty tough, tall order for him to expect to finish in the top 10, Tony. But I think, if he finishes the race and can finish inside somewhere in the top 15, that would be like winning the race, I believe, because with very little open wheel experience, guys that go to Australia and try to jump in what he does in supercars, I mean, Alexander
easy.
Rossi will tell you it's not easy.
No, Dixon told me that in the past. My gut feeling is that he will do more than one race this year. And then I think this is Roger preparing for whoever's going to go out of that team. I don't want to speculate right now, but he's already looking for what's next. The way they operate, PT can tell better because he was there for years. They're always thinking ahead. So he has an opportunity to test a guy, to give the guy a few races. Why not? I think they're not going to judge him in one race. He still has a championship to go win again back in Australia, but I believe we'll see him more than once this year.
I believe you're right. Roger Penske does things with a plan, and Tim Cindric has always been heavily involved in the teams. We see last year's Indy Lights champ, Oliver Askew, and we'll talk about the look of Errol McLaren SP in just a moment. But how are the other Penske drivers feeling? We talked about that last night. You're always on edge. You always have to beat your teammates, and they like being a three-car team. Yes, they could go to four, but I'm a little bit anxious if I'm one of those drivers.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to get a gauge yesterday of the temperature of the drivers, most of them, and, I got to say, I think Newgarden looks very calm and very relaxed and very confident looking. Last year, coming into the season, Pagenaud was a little bit on edge, had a bit of a nervous feel about him. He felt, to me, very comfortable yesterday. And I really got a sense, that maybe Will has got to be wondering, he's got to have a good year this year.
I disagree.
But you disagree? I think he's got to have a good year this year, or there could be question marks.
In my opinion, the guy that is on the tread there, it's Pagenaud.
Yeah.
They signed him for one more year. He was in the tread already. I think he saved himself
by winning the 500.
By winning the 500, which that doesn't mean a lot. I mean, it means a lot for Roger, but if it's your time there, it's your time there, because we've seen what happened to Montoya, when he was there. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see, PT. We'll see who's right.
Yeah, well, I think once you win the 500 for Roger, you have the golden ticket of being able to stay and do as much as you want there. So I find it hard to believe. One thing one box that needs to get checked, even though Newgarden has won the championship 2 times, is the Indy 500 for him.
Yep.
Will has won it. So
correct. So I guess, you know what? The answer is everybody is under pressure, and I think Roger likes that. Roger brought another guy in to say, hey, you got to be on your toes. And actually, I like that. That's the way I operated my entire career. I actually think that made me better. So I wake up in the morning with that feeling that my seat is actually
I was always on the verge of being fired there. Every day I was in trouble. So
here's the schedule. Very tentative TBD for today, tomorrow. Because of the conditions, so don't be shocked if they run through a lunch break if conditions are conducive, or they just park for a little while. We could see that at some point. There are better chances in the afternoon when it gets a little bit warmer, and then certainly much better, or at least somewhat better, is the forecast for tomorrow. All right, we've heard from one Penske driver. Let's hear from another. Back to pit lane and Katie.
Reigning series champion. Now let's check in with our reigning Indianapolis 500 champion, who also had a very busy offseason. Both Team Penske guys had one champion, one Indy 500 champion, and you both got married.
Yes. Yes, we have a busy schedule, so we made sure to do it on the same weekend also. But yeah, it's been a very busy off-season, especially winning Indy. Yeah, I feel like a new man. I really do feel like a new man. It feels great. I'm excited about going into this one, more focused, more determined than ever. So I'm also more relaxed, and I can't wait to get going. You know, it's very cold today, so unfortunately the temperature is too low to get running at the moment. So we're waiting, hoping for some better weather.
You talked for a long time about how winning the Indianapolis 500 really felt like a weight off your shoulders. How does that also renew your passion headed into this year?
It's, you know, it's more so of a personal deal. It's the pressure that I put on myself before. As a growing up kid that was in racing, that was my dream, and making it happen was a far-fetched, quite frankly. And the fact that it did, now I'm relaxed about my future. I'm relaxed about how I feel as a person, and I can just focus on the moment. And that's exactly what I need to do to be an even better driver. So I'm gonna do that this year. I'm very excited. Like I said, I just feel re-energized, determined, and focused.
So the ideal conditions are not ideal today. Looks like you're headed back to the garage. Can you learn anything by studying or any sort of data to look over from past tests?
I mean, you can, but we haven't driven in the wet here before. As you know, I love driving in the wet, so I'm hoping we can go out and just have some fun. You know, at this point, I just want to get back behind the wheel and just feel my IndyCar, feel the aero screen, feel the new 2020 Chevy engine and the evolution we've got. So there's a lot to test, there's a lot to do, but also there's a lot of fun to have. And I just want to be a race car driver and go out there and enjoy it.
What does this do for your mindset when you think, all right, we're kicking off the 2020 season today, and then all of a sudden we're not?
Well, you know, it's we're like kids at Christmas, so as you can imagine, there's a lot of excitement for a lot of us, I'm sure. But yeah, it's in racing, a lot of the time it's hurry up and wait, and you just learn to deal with it and ebbs and flow. It's just the way it is.
All right, one last question. With all that pressure off of you with winning the Indy 500, you've also got a championship under your belt. Do you feel like you can kind of let loose and just drive, and this will be your second championship season?
Well, that's certainly the goal. My number one priority is Indy, Katie. You know, it's that's the biggest race in the world. It's got such an impact on racing worldwide. It's got such an impact for me personally that that's what I want to do the most. So I'm going out there in 2020, trying again and trying to go out there and kick some bip bip. And then obviously second goal is winning the championship. We got really close last year. Joseph did a better job in the end. You know, we got to keep working at it and get a second one at the end.
Certainly treated you well last year, Simon. Good to see you.
Thank you, and congrats.
He was the runner-up last year. He's been the runner-up another time along with his championship as well. Simon Pagenaud.
I told you he's looking comfortable, looking happy.
Well, here's the other thing.
Good frame of mind.
He has a very close friend. He has an option, I think, if what Tony says does happen, where he finds himself odd man out. A lot of things have to happen for that to take place, but I think there would always be a seat for him at Arrow McLaren SP. Jill DeFerrin.
I agree with
what's
that.
What's he called? His Yogi is there?
His manager is Rick Gorn, and if you don't know Rick Gorn, he ran Reynard race cars for Adrian Reynard. Him and Jill DeFerrin go way, way, way back, longtime friends. So there is definitely some friendship there. And Jill and Simon go way back, racing together in the prototype for Acura, winning championship there. So there's definitely, I think, a plan for him if things go sideways, Tony.
For sure. I think that's something that you know, he'll land over there. That's Felipe Nars on the Carlin car doing his installation lap.
Really, really fast guy in prototypes. It's good to see him out here testing.
But interesting because he did test with Aerosmith, and I heard that actually wasn't a very good test. I don't know what happened there because he was up to grabs on that seat last year as well. They tested him in Ohio.
So we are just a little over a month away from the opening of the NTT INDYCAR Series. As usual, it's on the streets of St. Petersburg. The broadcast on NBCSN, 3:30 Eastern Time, Sunday, March 15th. tickets are available. It's IndyCar's spring break. Hope you can join us at St. Pete for the first of 16 weekends, 17 races. And we are excited to get going this year. Some familiar weekends, dates, some old friends back on the schedule, like Richmond we'll talk about a little later on. So Felipe Nasr is one of two that we're going to see this week in the Carlin car. The other is Sete Camara, a young Brazilian, 21 years old, who's won races in F2. So we will see he and Felipe Nasr split that car. No confirmation on what races anyone is doing at some point. That's still TBD. In the other Carlin car, Max Chilton will be back for the road and street courses and the Indianapolis 500. And word on the street is we might see Connor Daly in for the ovals later on in the season. And he's doing all the road and street courses and the 500 for Ed Carpenter Racing. So those are just some of the changes, and there's plenty to catch up with, and that's what's great about spring training is to find out who is where. Here's a little look of what we're seeing this year. So Marcus Ericsson in a red car. We've seen red with Chip Ganassi Racing before. They've had pretty good success with that. Charlie Kimball moves over to the 4 with A.J. Foyt. Sebastian Bourdais is doing the first 3 races and Portland in TK's car, one of 3 drivers in the number 14. We talked about Connor. The 2 rookies, the last 2 Indy Lights champs in the Arrow McLaren SP cars. Pato Ward and Oliver Askew. Scott McLaughlin is confirmed for the road course at IMS. Alex Palou in the 55 car. That's the number for what was the 19 last year. Santino Ferrucci moves to the 18. Dalton Kellett, Felipe Nasr, and Sete Camara.
Okay, I can't keep my mouth shut anymore. A guy who's not on that list that I just saw in the paddock is none other than the very famous
7-time
Mr. 7-time Jimmy Johnson is here. And he is looking, the word on the street is he's looking at trying to do some IndyCar races next year, and that would be amazing if that came together. And what do you think, Tony?
Now here's my question. I'm pretty sure, I'm convinced that if he's here, he's coming to do some sort of racing next year. The question is where and when he would start. Because, here we go. For a fact, I've heard before, even from him, that his wife would never let him do the Indy 500 because she doesn't like the Indy cars and ovals. So would he only do road and street courses? Or he's going to go for the big one, which, it's the Indy 500.
Well, I think, the races you would want to target, I think for him would obviously the big ones. Like Long Beach is one of our big ones. Indy Grand Prix. Where do you go after that?
I'll go Toronto.
Toronto.
And then the last one in Laguna.
Yeah.
I told him this morning at the driver's meeting, I said, Jimmy, I won't tell anybody. Let me know, because then I want to race with you, so I'll come back. I'll come back and do a couple races as well. We'll split up the schedule. So that's interesting. He's a humble guy, PT. You know him well. I mean, I've trained with him a lot. He's a training freak as well. So it's cool to see him here, but that's the big question. What is he going to do?
So he's serious about this because, oh, by the way, he's got a pretty big event coming up this weekend. This is Daytona 500 week, where I think he qualified fourth over the weekend. He's been hanging out with the Arrow McLaren SP team. If he's going to do this, it's going to be a high-profile situation. That's a team with the budget to just hire someone. Nothing was announced today. And by the way, Lee Diffie already talked with him. That will air on NASCAR America on NBCSN after 5 o'clock today. Jimmy is serious about this, and I agree with you guys. He's going to be in a car for multiple races in 2021.
He's done so much in his career that he can kind of write his own ticket now. If he wants to try this, I think the IndyCar Series would have open arms to let him have that opportunity, being who he is and what he's done, to come give it a try. Will it be a success? I don't know. I think, again, like the Scott McLaughlin situation, he's been in big, heavy, closed cockpit, sedans his whole career. It's a pretty tough order to jump in one of these cars on a road course and be competitive right away, but we're open to having him come, and I think it would be awesome.
But you know what, PT? I think it's different than Scott, because he's a 7-time. He has nothing to prove. I know he's going to want to do well, but now, in my opinion, he's doing what he wants to do. It's not about, oh, I got run off of NASCAR, and now I got to go try to find a job somewhere or anything like that. He says, you know what? I want to give this a try. And to be honest, he's doing what he wants. And then I appreciate that. I'm in that position right now myself. Actually, he even asked me, he says, are you coming to any of the drivers' meeting in NASCAR? I said, well, did I get an invitation? I'll be there. So I think it's more of a point of he was going to want to be successful, but that's what he wants to do.
Talking with Graham Rahal now. And he has been in a Formula car recently. He did a ride swap with Fernando Alonso.
Yep.
Drove a Formula One car last year, and I think that kind of
got
the
McLaren.
juices flowing. Exactly. So that relationship is already there. So.
And Kevin, as like you said, you will not take the time on your busy schedule on a Tuesday, on the week of the biggest race, to show up on a racetrack. Oh, I'm just watching on a cold, rainy day that you're hanging outside freezing. I think he had better things to do. So happy to see him here. I have to say, this is a pretty cool, addition to how the series is growing, and how finally we've got back to a point that we are, worldwide, we're very well known as a series that a legend wants to come back and race, like it used to be the old days.
Good for him to take a risk, because I think it's going to be hugely difficult. It's one thing to get within a half a second of the field, but it's a tall task to get in there and even be mid-pack. If he's faster than anyone, I would consider that an accomplishment.
100%. And then obviously he will have the proper equipment, but he is going to have a hard time, especially you talk about with the limit testing. And, I don't see them open. He's going to be a rookie, which is funny. But they're not going to give him extra days. You get like per the rule book, 2 days, 2 extra days during the season. And you talk about guys like Dixon, like Hunter Ray, like myself. That we've been around for 20 years, driving the same thing. It's the same thing if we do the swap over to NASCAR and go against them. It's a completely different beast. So you're going to have to work. But come on, I think he can do it.
I think he can do it. I think he'll be successful at whatever he wants to try to do. And you know as well as I do, Tony, that he's laser focused. But the first goal this year is to go out of his NASCAR career with a great season, and to start off this year, he's qualified fourth for the Daytona 500. Try to win another one of those. Finish as high as in the championship as he can. The sky's the limit for him. But on track, Marco Andretti.
Marco is in his 15th season. Think about that. 15 seasons for a guy that is, he's 32 years old.
I remember his rookie year. I was in charge of helping him out.
Won a race his rookie season, almost won the Indianapolis 500. Last year was a difficult season for him. He's talked about going back to some basics. Going to work with a driver coach again this year. The dynamics of that team, essentially now, it's a 6-car team. They had Colton Herta. They have a technical partnership with Jack Harvey and Meyer Shank Racing. There will likely be 7 cars for the Indianapolis 500. We'll talk about that significant storyline a little later on. But, TK, what are the dynamics of the engineering meetings when there are 6 drivers in there and so much data to cover?
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, if you think about every car has 2 engineers, you're talking about 12 engineers, let alone the 6 drivers. So it's 20 people.
Yeah.
And the way that Andretti does, they do not have a group meeting because it's too many people, and at the racetrack you don't have enough space to put everybody in the room. So everybody have their engineering room in each truck, and then the engineers and the drivers alone meet at the end of the day, and they discuss what happened during that day.
So that's the official Andretti Autosport lineup. And I asked Jack Harvey yesterday, are you a teammate? And he said, well, I don't know, sort of, pseudo-teammate.
Sort of.
But he gets the information. And
No,
the
he gets the info,
engineers...
because the shop is still in Columbus.
The
Shank shop is still in Columbus.
Correct. So it's their equipment, it's their cars, it's their people, but the information and the engineers come from Andretti. So we saw what Colton Herta did last year as a pseudo teammate. So it's pretty close.
All you need is the engineers in the dampers.
Yeah, potentially 7 cars too for the Indy 500. There's the other big elephant in the room, and that's Fernando Alonso wants to come back to the Indy 500. He's been in heavy negotiations, we hear, with Michael Andretti to put a deal together. That was squashed by Honda as of right now, but who knows what can happen there.
Honda of Japan, the reports say, I think Racer.com had that first, saying that they vetoed it. So is there a path for Fernando Alonso in a Chevy? No room at the end at Penske. Ed Carpenter has told me, I don't want to be 4 cars. I'm not planning on that. I think his only possibility is if he wants to go back with McLaren in the Arrow McLaren SP team. And they have 2 rookies. They might want a veteran there. He might want veteran teammates. I'm not sure that we're going to see Fernando Alonso as we watch Scott McLaughlin back on track.
2 rookies at McLaren, I think, is probably not ideal going to the Indy 500. And you know Tony as well as anybody, when you go there as a rookie, you know Pato was there last year, had a big crash in practice, didn't make the race, so he's still a rookie there. That's a big order for a team to go there with 2 rookies with no help from an experienced veteran.
100%. I think that's extremely risky, and on top of that, I think it's not healthy for the team to actually add Alonso to that, because it'll be a huge distraction.
I don't think he
cannot add to those rookies.
He can't add to those rookies because he's only done 1 race in a car that was very well set up.
Exactly.
He didn't really have to come in and do very much except jump in and learn how to drive the car. The car was, they had 4 cars that year that were all competitive in the race and could have won the race. So,
and very experienced teammates that would help him out. Mm-hmm. I think if I was running McLaren right now, I wouldn't consider that as an option.
I'd be calling Tony Kanaan if I was Gilles de Ferran. Your old buddy. Your old buddy should be hiring you.
Well, I'll be in that race, so I can't do anything about it. So I'm going to try to
maybe
beat
2021.
Yeah, who knows?
I wouldn't announce your retirement yet, brother.
No, I didn't say I'm retiring.
Exactly.
I said I'm slowing it down, but I'm still, you still see me around. I'm still available.
Ovals is the plan for Tony this year. He'll do all the ovals in the number 14 for AJ Foyt Racing, and he did not rule out doing future races, including the 500 and other events. Get a chance to taste out some other things.
I'm open for anything that has 4 wheels of steering wheel. I even said PT just bought this car that he's modifying. I asked him if I could drive. He told me that I wouldn't fit in his seat because I'm too tiny. So I said, I'll bring some foam and we can have some fun.
We need to find a rich guy. The guy who's the master of that is Townsend Bell. So we might have to give him either hire him as an agent or give him a cut of something. If we're going to go sports car racing, brother, we need to find a rich guy to pay for it.
Oh, we can wait for Townsend Bell is rich. We can wait for him to get old and we will race with him.
Have you seen his
Can he become the gentleman driver?
Have you seen his backyard that he just put in? The $1.5 million backyard pool?
It took a little while to get that done.
Yes.
Paul Tracy, Tony Kanaan, Kevin Lee, Katie Hargett is on pit road. Jake Query will be with us a little while longer. We are about 35 minutes into the 2020 season, the official preseason open test, and it is cold. The reason you're not seeing laps at speed is because it's wet and 45 degrees, so we're essentially running under caution. These are install laps, and this is the plan for Team Penske this year. 5 different drivers, 4 cars, 3 full-time. Helio Castroneves thought he was going to do both races in May, and until very recently when Scott McLaughlin was announced doing the road course race at Indianapolis. Helio will be back for another attempt at his 4th Indianapolis 500. And I talked with Helio at Daytona a few weeks ago. He wants to continue racing beyond this year, and he hopes it's still with Team Penske, but the numbers are starting to become a concern. Their sports car program contract ends at the end of this year. They may stay in it, but there's no guarantee in that. But he did say, I want to run Team Penske, but I plan on driving next year, and I hope it's with Team Penske, but if there's not an opportunity there, I am available to drive elsewhere.
I really got to believe that Penske sports car program will keep going with the new announcement of the rules package and the teams being eligible to get to Le Mans with a DPI type chassis. I think, since they already have one, why wouldn't you want to do that?
That was the thought I had too. I think Roger Penske has always wanted to have a chance to compete for the overall Le Mans win, and now that's going to be possible starting in 2022.
But I have to say, knowing Helio the way I do, obviously I have some inside information which I can share with you guys. Helio still want to race an IndyCar. And
yes.
If an opportunity presents that is not with Penske, because that's obviously not happening, I think he will take it.
I won't rule him out being full-time in IndyCar next year.
I worked really hard at the end of last year to have him to come to be in the 4-car
Juan
with me this
very
year.
well. He wants to do the Indy 500, but from what I understand, Roger won't let him do it.
Not with another team.
Not with another team.
Would Helio be allowed to do it?
No, Helio is out of Penske in the end of this year because they're not doing sports car. Or if Helio gets the opportunity to get a full-time ride, he would ask Roger to release him from whatever Roger wants him to do in sports car come back and run a full-time IndyCar season. I'm pretty sure. Which, in my opinion, I don't think that's smart because you want to continue with Roger and whatever he does. Yes. But I can't answer for Helio. But that was last year. We're talking to try to bring him over.
We're just starting 2020, but there's already storylines for 2021. All right, let's meet some of the drivers. One we're very familiar with, and a new face to IndyCar. The reigning Indy Lights champion is with Katie.
Yeah, Kevin, many people are familiar with Oliver Askew due to that championship in Indy Lights last year. But Oliver, kicking off your first season in IndyCar, also with the newly formed Arrow McLaren SP. How does it feel to be in IndyCar now?
It's great to be here officially starting the season with all the other teams here. Everything put together. We did our car launch in Indy a couple days ago, which was super exciting, and we're just ready to get to work. So great to be with the guys at Arrow McLaren SP this weekend, and hopefully we can learn as much as we can and move on and be strong here in a couple months.
Arrow in itself has become a pretty big name in IndyCar due to their sponsorship with Schmidt-Peterson for several years. Now to bring on McLaren, what does it mean to be able to represent two such large brands?
It's huge, especially to have McLaren on board back in IndyCar after a number of years, full-time. Zach Brown is here this weekend, and along with many McLaren engineers from England. So we have a lot of support from them, and we're looking forward to using that to our advantage throughout the year.
You guys are now such a young team. You have yourself, the reigning Indy Lights champion, your teammate Pato O'Ward, who was the Indy Lights champion 2 years ago. How do you get that veteran voice?
Well, we have Robert Wickens here with us.
Oh, funny you say that.
He is both. He's Pato and myself. He is our mentor. So we look to him for any questions that we may have. He has recent experience in the car too, which is going to help us through the season.
All right. Speaking of Robert, how do you coach two such young guys?
First off, I'm probably the only one you interview where you talk down to.
Pato might be smaller than me.
That's true. Yeah, there's a couple short ones. No, it's fun. I mean, it's a new challenge. It's fun to be, back with the team and back at a racetrack. 'Cause it's been, since Laguna, since I was at a racetrack. So it's always good to smell that air, that racetrack air. But when they told me to go to Texas, I was expecting it to be better weather than this.
I was too. So maybe you guys are headed to Dallas after this to test at the Oval, which is definitely a new challenge for these guys. Road courses are a little easier to adjust to. How do you prepare them for something like that?
Texas is tough. I mean, from a driver confidence level, it's kind of it's hard to coach because you just have to slowly build up your confidence to be flat on a quali lap, and that's the only important thing, really. It's the only thing you could really coach. And apart from the engineers giving them a good car to be able to do it, it's just him taking it step by step and making sure his lines are good. But Oliver's no slouch on ovals. He's won on ovals. So I think it's going to be, I'm not concerned. I think it's going to be all right, but I'm actually leaving him alone for the test because I need to go back to the Indy to keep rehabbing. So I'm gonna leave him fly solo for that test.
Speaking of rehab, fans' number one concern when it comes to you always is, how is your rehab going?
It's day by day. It's kind of the same story every interview. It's coming along. It's getting there. It's just unfortunately not at the pace that I would want it to be. But then when I kind of look out of my own bubble, it's pretty remarkable what we've been able to achieve and everything that goes into it. And I'm very fortunate that I'm still improving and still getting better, because with paralysis, one day you can wake up and it could just be over. So I'm just trying to maximize my time while I have it and really see where I go. But we have a good team behind me with PitFit and St. Vincent in Indianapolis, some good doctors, and everything's moving pretty well.
And we'll see you at all the races this year?
I'm going to be at a bunch, yeah. I mean, I planned on going to more than I did in 2019, so the plan is to make it to all the permanent road courses and street courses. I'll be there all month of May because, it's May, so it's hard to not go when you live in that town too. So it's going to be fun, but after that we're just going to play it by ear and see how it goes.
All right, thanks, Robert. Good to see you here at the track. And Oliver, to kind of wrap this all up, new team, 2 young drivers. What are the expectations for you guys for this year? What expectations are you setting for yourself?
I don't like to use the word expectations. I think as long as we work as hard as we can in the off season now to make sure we show up to St. Pete and it doesn't feel like my first race, I think that'll be an achievement in itself. But I think goals for me at the moment would be to win Rookie of the Year. I think that's very clear. It's going to be a tight fight between, I think there's 4 or 5 of us full time. So looking forward to the fight, obviously, with Renas, who have been battling for the past 6 years.
Your entire life.
Yeah, and it's so funny. We're together here in the garage right next to each other again. So
you can't get away from it.
Not get away from the guy. So I'm looking forward to the season for sure.
All right, we're looking forward to those battles as well. Oliver, good luck this year.
Thanks.
Oliver Askew is a true rookie in IndyCar. His teammate Pato O'Ward will be a rookie again at the Indianapolis 500, but technically not a rookie in IndyCar. So if you're wondering, the rules state if you have participated in more than 4 races in a single season or 8 over your career, you're no longer eligible, and he passes both of those tests. He's done, I think it's a total of 8 IndyCar races, including 1 at the end of 2018 and the 7 he did last year. So not a rookie full season, but a rookie at the 500. And here is the schedule for the rookies in the entire field for 2020 in the NTT INDYCAR Series. Nothing new on that page. We see some changes. We get to the second half of the schedule, including being back at Richmond, TK, one of your events.
Love it. Love it. It's a cool track.
And last year's return to WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca was, I think, very successful as well. Good racing, good atmosphere, good crowd.
Yeah, and they're going to repave soon. I don't know if it's going to happen for this year or maybe next year, but there's a repave going to happen there, which will be awesome as well because the track is very weathered. But I want to go back to Wickens and his training. He's part of the Pit Fit camp with Jim Leo. You're a big Pit Fit guy. You've been in that camp a long time. And I've always wondered this, and we've talked about this on broadcast when you're out driving. What is the dynamic like when you're at a race and you're racing and you're competitive, and then you go to the gym and then all your competitors are there and you guys are doing the row, you're doing the stairs, you're doing all these different exercises? Does it get competitive with each other in the gym on Monday?
100%. And it gets awkward too, because sometimes you have an incident on Sunday and we all in the gym on Monday, and there are a few days that we don't wish each other good morning because you're not talking. But and that's the thing. Jim has specialized himself with drivers, and then back in the days, PT, we did our own thing. Yeah, but it wasn't a guy that focused.
Things were very secretive and private. You didn't want to know your team, your friend on the track to know what you did or how long you biked. You wanted to keep your training secret from the other competitors. But you guys are all training together, and you guys are like competing for times on runs, on the row machine, on the stairs. So
and we know everybody's strength and everybody's weaknesses. So that's actually it's a good thing, but it's a bad thing. You know?
I also train at Pit Fit, but I'm on a different program than TK is. Back to pit lane. Katie has found Connor Daly.
Yeah, and Connor Daly back for almost a full season with Ed Carpenter Racing this year. Connor, you took last year mostly off, so how good is it to know just that your full season is set and way ahead of time?
Well, you never know. We got a Space Force now. We landed on the moon, and I did 7 races last year, so we only had 1. So you never know. But we do know that we've got 13 races, and this car It's just awesome to be with this team. It's a great group of people. Ed Carpenter is an incredible leader and a good person. He's got a great group of people here. So, I would not be here without the U.S. Air Force. So awesome to be representing for them again. And, hopefully, this is the year where we can win. And, I already feel like I'm at home, which is wild. This is a test day, something that I don't really recall that much of. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, we'll just see how it goes. We're just going to take it one day at a time. Obviously, I'm still going to try and drive like I got just one weekend and see how it plays out. But thankfully, we've got a few weekends in a row.
I also want to see if my camera guy, Kevin, can show your car. I know we don't have a signal back in the garages, but if you can zoom in on his car, Kevin, because it's got to be one of my favorite liveries all year. Of course, that iconic, fighter jet livery. What does it mean to have not only that and just look mean on the racetrack, but also to have the U.S. Air Force support once again?
Well, I think last year we definitely created a bit of a brand. We put the mouth on it. And then suddenly I saw shark teeth everywhere. We had Bubba Wallace with it on. I saw it in The Bachelor on one of those little cars that lady flew.
You just admitted you watched The Bachelor.
Oh, obviously, I'm a man of the people. And yeah, I think I see it everywhere. So it's really cool to sort of, I'm not claiming that we created that, but it's striking. And we wanted to obviously do something a little bit different this year. And with the red is really cool. And some of the older fighter jets used to have the red and white on the rear rudder. So it's sort of like a rudder stripes. So that's sort of the the thought process behind there. And red and white is part of the American flag, if anyone didn't know. And yeah, so it looks awesome again. And it will not be our car for the Indy 500. We will have another look for the Indy 500, which I'm very excited about, and a different number, obviously. But yeah, that'll be a whole separate announcement, and will also be very cool.
Any hints?
No.
None whatsoever. Not even a tiny one.
No. You just wait like
What's
everyone
the color
else.
of the livery?
I can't tell you.
Okay, you can't say I tried. All right, you mentioned.
Let me tell you, it has to do with the U.S. Air Force, and it is very American.
So is it a eagle?
It is not an eagle. There are no eagles in the Air Force.
No, I mean, you said it's very American.
Nope.
Okay.
Not an eagle. Just wait.
All right. Well, you mentioned not having test days in your recent past years of IndyCar. So here at COTA, what is the test plan for you guys?
Well, I mean, this is super important, and sadly it's raining. So it would be nice to be getting laps. This sort of goes along with about what I thought would happen. But yeah, it's fine. I mean, if we can get out, we would like to. I mean, even in the rain. I mean, I have not driven for these guys yet, so we want to get out there. I like the rain, and they seem to have enough confidence in me to go out there and just do a few laps and just see what's going on. But obviously, we would love it to dry out, and that is going to be super important. But you never know. It could rain somewhere this year, and it would be nice to have some data on that. And I would like to see if we can see out of the aero screen if it's very rainy. So we'll see.
So far, this appears to have kind of been a seamless transition for you moving into ECR. What has made it feel so much like home?
Well, I mean, I know a lot of these guys, or I've known some of them for a long time. I mean, heck, some of the guys were even at Panther Racing, like when my stepdad Doug was part of the team over there. So, I feel like I feel like I know everyone on every team now, oddly enough, except for Penske and Ganassi.
Ran for almost all of them.
But yeah, I mean, I like this home. I like this environment. Being able to go to the shop, every day is super nice. And just the preparation level is very high. I think what these guys do, is incredible, and that is what we want to take advantage of. So we just, I got to get used to my engineer, Pete. I've first time working with him, but I've known Matt Barnes, for forever, because he lives about half a mile from me. So that's kind of cool. And yeah, we just got to develop a relationship and just knock out, days one at a time.
How excited do you get just thinking of May, knowing just how well ECR cars perform every single year during May?
It is an exciting thought, yes. But the funny thing is like May is cool to think about, like when you're only doing it. But like I'm doing St. Pete, and that's what I want to think about, because like I love St. Pete, and like I got to lead there my rookie year and really wanted to have a good finish there. So like I like that track. I want to start strong, because I think if you start strong, that really helps you out. But if something happens, you never know. Bad luck, all this stuff in racing. We've got another race right after that. So, it's cool to be able to have that momentum going back into May, because showing up for May and racing for your first time is that's tough. Like physically, I mean, Townsend knows, like people that do it one-off know that, like, hey, as many times as you've done it, I've done it 6 times or whatever now, it's still like when you get into a race environment with all these very, very highly talented individuals, it is tough. And now I think, you'll be able to start a little bit more with your nerve endings on fire and be ready to, fight for something.
Thanks, Connor. Good luck to you this season.
Thank you.
And it is easier to name the teams that Connor has not driven for. And it literally is just Penske and Ganassi. He's driven for Juncos on the road to Indy, so he's been with everyone. And this is the plan for Ed Carpenter Racing. Ed is back for the ovals, just like TK in that program. Connor for the road courses and the Indy 500 in a third car in a number TBD. And rookie Rinus VeeKay, Oliver Askew mentioned him. He was the Indy Pro 2000 champ 2 years ago, the runner-up for Juncos last year in Indy Lights, and people are speaking very highly of Rinus VeeKay. This is going to be a good rookie class this year.
Yeah, Ari Sr. says he is very, very quick. It'll be interesting to see how he does. And the big question mark is how much longer is Ed going to continue to drive? Obviously, he's up in age range, up around 40. What is his age now?
No. He's almost my age. He's close. I mean, between now that I'm semi-part-time, Sato, Dixon, and him, they're the oldest. We can make sure that we find his right age.
What's the age?
He's upper 40, so
For who?
42, 43.
For who?
Ed.
Ed is...
42?
No, he's not 40 yet.
No?
He will be 39 in March.
Yeah, so
that's not bad.
And it's like Connor said. I mean, the longer you go when you're not full-time and you jump in a car and you haven't been in a car for 6 months, and then you get out of the car and then you get in the car 3 months later, and then you're in and out. The longer you get away from when you were full-time, those gaps, like I can say from my own experience, when I was racing in IndyCar and then I kind of went into a forced part-time situation, the first couple years for me, it was easy to jump back in a car straight away. But as time went on, it got harder and harder and harder for me to be competitive because I was out of the car for too long.
So I'm taking your advice, but I'll let you know how I feel in May because, I've been out of the car for 6 months now.
Did you see James Shakes there? That was James Shakes there, former Dale Coyne Racing, Ray Hall Letterman.
Hanging around.
Racing car, hanging around. Yeah, you never know. There's some seats available. That's Tony Kanaan, Paul Tracy, Kevin Lee. Thanks for joining us. It's a red flag for the moment because it's just too cold and too wet to do anything. So we're still hoping that we see something a little later on when the temperature warms up a little bit because they will and want to run in the wet. So I
race
think we're still
control,
going to see something.
Obviously open the track for people to do their installation laps. And then when everybody has done that, every team has done it, they close the track. And Firestone's not letting anybody run until it warms up a bit.
So just like the schedule, our schedule is a bit TBD. I think we're going to be back here in just a little bit, so stay with us, and we'll keep you up to date on what's happening today at Circuit of the Americas. The 2020 season is underway. Thanks for joining us on IndyCar.com.
Radio check this, Rick. You guys copy? On green next time. Ready?
Such a beautiful location to get the NTT INDYCAR season underway.
Green flag is out.
Green.
Rosenquist. Rosenquist goes to P1.
Newgarden is going to come out in the lead.
Joseph Newgarden
Yeah, Joseph.
Series inaugural race.
Holtperter challenging Alexander Rossi for that second spot. And he gets in.
Big crash and yellow's going to come out.
He stalls the car. Now becomes the youngest to ever win an IndyCar.
Fantastic job, Coach.
Barber Motorsports Park. Takuma Sato and Graham Rahal on the front row.
No, me straight onto the grass.
What a day for Takuma Sato.
Beautiful Long Beach, California.
Dixon's trying to take the fight to Rossi.
Missed turn number 1.
Totally blocking, man. They're going to call that. Winner. Back to back. Great job.
The month of May is here. This is the Grand Prix of Indianapolis.
Disaster for Alexander Rossi.
Inside Pagano.
No more push to pass. Deep on the brakes.
Oh, and Dixon.
He
a
runs
little wide
wide.
there.
Did touch.
Pagano.
Outside he goes. Unbelievable.
The 100th running of the Indianapolis 500.
Gentlemen, start your engine.
The early advantage goes to Simon Pagano in turn number 1.
I think Davison missed his box altogether.
Winner slides in and he's crooked.
They cannot get the fuel to plug in.
This is disastrous for him.
What are we doing?
To the inside, Simon Pagano. Oh, he's at a crash.
huge. Pagano has taken the lead. Wins his maiden Indy 500. Ready to go racing for the first of two. Rossi leads this field to green.
They didn't get the title.
Oh, no. Newgarden wins in Detroit.
Green.
Oh, there was contact in the middle. Rosenquist. And a big contact.
Ward 8 nails him, and it just goes flying.
Newgarden is inside.
Scott Dixon is going to rebound from the DNF and go to victory lane.
Let's go in the Lone Star State.
Making moves very close there.
Sato is into the pit wall.
Contact. Newgarden wins in Texas.
The championship chase resumes today at beautiful Road America.
Rossi around the outside, and he's going to pull out.
Oh, we've got a car around. Scott Dixon.
Let's go to wheel one.
Alexander Rossi victorious. IndyCar is back in town.
Let's get ready.
Green flag is out.
Trouble into turn 8, and it's contact.
Power just creaming.
He hit that wall hard.
Pole position to victory lane. Simon Pagano wins in Toronto. Under the lights here at the 7/8 of a mile Iowa Speedway.
Take it easy. Be patient. One back bottom lane clear. Taco starting to struggle big time here.
Look at Santino on the outside.
Joseph Newgarden wins here in Iowa.
Here we go.
Trouble further back. James Hinchcliffe, who's off in the grass.
that was close. Wheels.
Around the outside, turn one. Over under to the inside. Dixon, teammate. They come in.
Newgarden and Hunter Ray get together.
Oh no! To the line. Rosenquist on his gearbox. Scott Dixon will win.
And Rossi moves to within 16 of the championship.
500 exciting miles right here at Pocono Raceway. The top four in the championship are in the top four positions.
Oh! Huge crash. Hunter Ray. Sato. Oh no, and Rossi is in it.
Will Power takes control of this race. Round 15, under the lights here at Gateway.
Sato and Hunter Ray getting together. Will Power has made contact.
Dixon sitting on pit lane.
Here comes Ferrucci off the turn 2.
It's going to be close. It's Takuma Sato. It's a blue sky day. There's a good crowd on hand and ready to get things rolling.
Utter chaos into turn number 1.
That was on me. Not bad.
He runs him down to the
Ryan, don't do that.
Oh, man. Side by side down the back straightaway.
Here comes Dixon.
That car is moving so slow down pit road.
Will Power wins in Portland for the very first time. Newgarden now boasts a 41-point advantage, and Rossi slides back into second. Simon Pagano is third, and Dixon finds himself 85 points back. WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. There is a championship to be decided. Let's see who gets it.
Oh, big block from Rossi.
Rossi's off, dirt tracking.
That's Ferrucci locked up and into the side.
Championship leader Joseph Newgarden is back in 8th place. Colton Herter wins at a track where he's standing.
Great job, buddy. Yeah, baby. Yeah, baby.
Joseph Newgarden is the 2019 champion.
Just really thankful, man, for everyone that's done everything for me.
It all starts here. The Firestone Grand Prix roars through the streets of beautiful downtown St. Petersburg. March 13th through 15th, the NTT INDYCAR Series headlines an action-packed weekend of racing under the sun.
What a move!
Lowest moment there.
Advance tickets start at $25. The Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg.
Light 'em up, baby.
March 13th through 15th. Get tickets at gpstpete.com. Miller Lite Carb Day kicks off Indy 500 weekend with rock legends REO Speedwagon and Stick. Friday, May 22nd at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. See on-track action and the Pit Stop Challenge. Followed by REO Speedwagon and Sticks live in concert. Tickets at ims.com. Don't miss that Carb Day feeling. Firestone Legends Day returns to Indy 500 weekend, headlined by country music sensation Luke Bryan. Live in concert at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Saturday, May 23rd. Kick off summer with Luke Bryan live at the Brickyard Memorial Day weekend. Buy your tickets now and save at ims.com.
There's nothing quite like it.
The goosebumps when the engines rev.
The baseline in your chest.
The thunder of 300,000.
The energy.
You can feel it in the air.
The taste of ice cold milk. The whole city coming alive.
Being a part of it all.
Passing down tradition.
Pure adrenaline.
Pure speed.
Pure speed.
Pure speed.
That feeling.
That feeling.
That feeling.
That feeling.
That feeling.
That May feeling.
All being back at a racetrack, you can't help but think about the Indianapolis 500, the 104th coming up. And it gets started with the race on the road course in May. Thanks for joining us, Kevin Lee, Paul Tracy, Tony Kanaan, Katie Harriet, Jake Query along a little later on. In a very cold and wet day so far. The track is red for the moment. The rest of the day is TBD on conditions. We have tomorrow planned as well coming up. Let's hear from more of the drivers, though. They're not busy right now, and Katie has found another.
Yeah, Kevin, the drivers have kind of started ducking into the garages and their trucks, so we have found Zach Veach hanging out in his garage. Zach, welcome back to the 2020 IndyCar season. What kept you busy during the winter?
A lot of training and building a van. I tried my hand at carpentry, and
how did that go?
I have 10 fingers, so that's the main
impressive.
thing. So that was the main objective, was just not to lose any limbs or digits. So yeah, just that and waiting. I mean, this is spring training, so we were all looking forward to that spring weather down here in Texas, and it's about 49 degrees and raining, so it's not ideal.
Yeah. But that van, I think you're downplaying a little bit, because I've seen those pictures on social media. Not only is it a van, it's like a mini motorhome that you take rock climbing.
Yeah, basically. We got to the point where we're tired of sleeping in the dirt and cooking in the rain. So
I can't imagine why.
Yeah, it's fun, but I'm 25 now, so like I'm crossing that threshold of just, it's downhill from here.
You just offended everybody in the booth, where we've got Paul Tracy, Kevin Lee, and Tony Kanaan.
I try, but Tony, man, he's riding a bike every single day. That guy's insane. So I'm trying to keep up with him, but that's a tall order. But yeah, we're really happy to be here. I mean, it's such a long off season. I mean, even in Indy Lights, we'd go and test 5 or 6 times through November and December. This is the first time I've been back in an IndyCar since Laguna, so it's such a wait that this is really the only thing you look forward to throughout the entire off season. So I'm just happy to be back.
How good, even though it was just an install lap, how good did it feel to buckle in and put that helmet on?
Well, I haven't got to go just yet. We got close to the red flag. The tough thing is getting heat in the car. So the oil temperature and water temperature have to be a certain degree, about 60 degrees, before you can start the car. So it's so cold here that's just taking a very long time. So we didn't get the car hot enough to fire it over before the red track went red. So I think we'll probably get out here just for a single install lap. Not exactly certain how the rest of the day is going to plan out, but we're hoping to get out and do some running before too long. But what I hear, it's pretty slick out there right now.
Yeah, and what we also do know is that Andretti Autosport has again expanded, added Colton Herta to the team. Does that change the team dynamic over here at all?
Before long, we're going to have the entire series, so it's going to be an Andretti win no matter what. No, it's just great. I mean, Colton is such a good guy, and he's super talented as well, what we saw last year. So having him in the truck full time is just a benefit for all of us. And we're all kind of a family. We were basically that same family last year, just split up in a weird way. So to have us all together, I think, is going to be good for everyone. So the truck's getting a little tight. It's very hard to, hear yourself think. But, at the end of the day, it's still an advantage.
What did you learn last year that you can take into 2020?
Just enjoy it. Just have fun. Don't take it too seriously, and don't be too aggressive. So, I mean, first year we were a bit too conservative. Last year we definitely shot over it and was too aggressive and just couldn't find ourselves really. So this year, just starting fresh, just go at it like we did before. We've been competitive in every group or every series we ran in. It's just now I got to connect the dots the best we can. This is our third year, so now's the time to make something happen because it needs to.
So over the winter, did you take some time maybe reviewing tape from 2018, some from 2019, and trying to find that middle ground?
So I kind of took the opposite approach. Between 2018 and 19, I was in the shop for like 6 weeks. I went through every practice session, reviewed every piece of data, every bit of video. And then it's like last year I just overthought everything. So this year I just looked at the highlights, what we did well, what we needed to do better, the bullet points, and then just said, I'm going to wait till I get back in the car. So just trying not to get in our own way this year and just let it come naturally, because when you're just driving instinctually, I think you're always better off than when you're trying to put every single piece of it together in your head before you go do it. So just going to enjoy the experience, the process of it all, and get back to doing something that I love more than anything else in the world.
In your mind, what are some of those bullet points, both the positive and the negative?
Yeah, for me, it's just not letting all the outside stuff get to you. You have a very busy schedule, especially you're in the eye of social media and everything as well. You got to kind of stay away from all that stuff and just focus on yourself and focus on your job and your craft. So, yeah, it's just, thinking about the things that are in our control, not worrying too much about the things that affect us that aren't. And just having fun, because, you have such a cool job that you should be enjoying it. You shouldn't let the bad days get to you so much. So, yeah, that's my main thing, is just enjoy the process of what it takes to be quick in an IndyCar this year.
Yeah, we're all pretty lucky. Good to see you back this season, Zach. Good luck.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
I think well stated. It's year 3. It's time.
Yeah, well, and, he had a rough year last year, and it was, myself having spoken to him last year, he said, year 1 was his goal was to come in and be competitive with Marco and beat Marco at times and try to finish ahead of Marco in the championship. And he did a pretty good job of that the first year. So going into year 2, he lofted his goals up to be competitive with Rossi and Hunter Ray. And I think he just put a lot of pressure on himself. And with the pressure came mistakes and overdriving, and then overdriving was what caused offs. And like he said, I think, Tony, when you overanalyze things, you tend to just keep focusing on negative things, and sometimes you just got to push that to the side and just try to get back to having fun.
No, 100%. And I think, you saw his mentioning on social media and stuff. I mean, we work out at the gym quite a bit, and I actually talked him in buying a bike. Now I start riding, but he was reading a lot of stuff about himself, what people's opinion are, and people can get brave behind the keyboard, and that that hurt him for sure as well.
Today is a very significant day. Not only is it the beginning officially of a new season, and we see the new liveries and drivers in new places, but this is noteworthy. This is the next evolution in safety, and our first look at onboard footage, courtesy of the defending champion, Joseph Newgarden, and Team Penske. A look at a little bit of what he's seeing with the new aero screen.
Pretty clear screen there, Tony. You haven't driven the car, actually, but that's a pretty nice view.
It's awesome. Look at how clear it is. I mean, it's good footage.
I think we've got a couple of different looks, so we'll stay on this for a moment.
There's no traction at all.
No traction there. Ooh, look at that. It's catchy. You guys can see also the dash of the steering is pretty cool. You can actually customize that and put whatever you want there.
I think we're going to get some different looks this year on the broadcast. Don't be surprised if you see a look looking right back in the driver's eyes. That's going to be fascinating to see. And there's what you talk about.
The helmet camera.
See the alarm of the water temp low there? It's obviously a cold day. The engine wasn't warm as it needs to be.
Have you done much work on the sim with the halo? Essentially, that's what that is. This is the combination of a halo and a windshield.
Not yet. They just got that done a couple weeks ago. So we're going through. Chevy has one sim in Charlotte, and we actually rotate between all the teams.
Okay.
We all get our fair share. Obviously, as a team, Foyt sent Bourdais first because he was going to be Bourdais and Charlie first because they're going to be in the car here. I'm next in a couple weeks, so I'll let you guys know.
So how you spend a lot of time in the sim, and I've driven at home simulators. I've never driven a real Chevy or a Honda simulator. How accurate is that to actually really driving the car? Because obviously the consequences are a lot less when you crash. It doesn't hurt when you crash, does it?
No, not at all. I mean, to me, as of getting to refresh your mind at the racetrack, you know, at the IndyCar, because it's a proper IndyCar. I mean, it's the tub, the steering wheel, it's your seat, it's the track that usually we go test the tracks that we're going to race. That's great. Now, if I'm going to tell you that I actually came up with a good setup out of the sim, that did not happen for me. I mean, we can do the gears, you can do ride height because the engineers can see those on the computer, but as a driver, you don't feel when it's touching, you don't feel none of that because obviously it's a sim. So I use it a lot to just get, you know, let's say we're going to Long Beach, we haven't been there, or St. Pete, let's use St. Pete, and you haven't been there in a year, you get there, the track graphics, it's perfect, the braking zones are perfect, you do the same thing. But if you're going to say, here Tony, we're going to try a third spring or a roll bar or a damper, I couldn't feel it, and then we never
Can you feel lateral G when you're going through a corner?
100%.
There's lateral G.
I mean, you can't, like, I fully sweat like I was in a race car every time we were there. So that is, you know, you obviously not wearing a helmet, you wear a headphone, but the G forces are the same, lateral and front and back. So it's
so good for training, for actually driving. But how many times have you crashed on the sim versus on the racetrack?
I would do it like every 5 laps. You just start to get brave, and you start to get a better lap time, and you know there is no consequences. So
yeah.
Well, that's a great look of a little bit of what Joseph Newgarden is seeing, and we'll hopefully see more of that throughout the next couple of days. Red flag for the moment. It's 45 degrees and wet, so no cars on track, but we still may see some install laps a little bit later on. As we mentioned, there is a special visitor here today. Jimmy Johnson is here ahead of the Daytona 500, and he spoke with NBC's Lee Diffie not long ago. Here's a little look at that, of what you'll see later today on NBCSN's NASCAR America.
Well, in the week of the Daytona 500, the last place perhaps you'd expect to find 7-time Cup champion Jimmy Johnson is here at Circuit of the Americas at the NTT INDYCAR Series pre-season testing. So, Jimmy, the question begs, why are you here?
Just to look around and have some fun. I have great friends that live here in Austin, great friends in this garage area, including my friends at McLaren. As you might remember, I did that Formula One swap with Fernando a couple of years ago now, and I just wanted to come check it out. I love Austin. I've always wanted to come to this racetrack. Hopefully we get some cars on track and I can see some action.
So we've been talking to a lot of the drivers yesterday in particular in the lead up to this season, a whole variety of questions that we asked. One of them was about a seat swap. If you could seat swap with any NASCAR driver, who would it be and why? Your name kept coming out many, many times. So is it a reality? Could we see you in one of these one day?
Yeah, first of all, a seat swap with any of these guys would be a huge honor, and that makes me smile hearing that they would want to swap with me. But yeah, you know, IndyCar has been something that I grew up as a kid dreaming to race. Growing up in Southern California, I can tell you how many times I attended the Long Beach Grand Prix, was just in and around. A lot of my heroes like Rick Mears came from off-road racing such as I, and it went into IndyCar. So it's always been on my radar. My path took me to NASCAR. I have no clue what 21 holds for me, but I'm open, and we'll see where the year goes and what develops. And you know, if there was the right opportunity, I'd certainly consider it.
So let's speak about your diversity and your passion just for racing, okay? Yeah. So it starts out motocross, all right, with Rick Johnson being your mentor and, I don't want to say hero, but one of your mentors.
Sure,
and then off-road racing, and then, of course, you go into stock car racing. Did really, really well at the Rolex 24. Your teammates said that as soon as you got in the car, within a couple of laps, you were on their pace. So you've already proven that you're a very diverse driver. The seat swap went really well. So, you know, guys like peers like yours and competitors like yours, Kurt Busch, Tony Stewart, guys like that, once the pressure is almost off from your day job, you'd like to go and check some boxes within the racing sphere. Is this a box you would like to check?
That is a great way to put it, and certainly where my headspace is. And you know, IndyCar is an option. Sports car is definitely an option. I've finished second in the Rolex 24 twice, and I'd love to go back and have a shot at the stand on the top box. Le Mans has always been on my wish list. You mentioned the off-road. I'd love to go back and race the Mint 400 again, or the Parker 400. Some of those tracks or courses that I really enjoyed. Short course off-road racing, you know, I'm really open in the point of checking boxes. That's what 21 and beyond will be about, in the car and then also out of the car. And there's a lot that I want to do and want to have a better balance in life with my family. I want to go do some heli skiing. I love to ski. I've always had an idea that I wanted to do a full distance Ironman. There's some mountain bike races I'm interested in. So 21 and beyond is about checking those boxes.
I think something that the viewers would find interesting is that at heart, and not just you, all of your colleagues, your co-workers, your peers, at the core, you're a motor racing fan, right?
Without a doubt. I love racing. It doesn't matter if it's 2 wheels, 4 wheels, asphalt, dirt, and heck, I've even gotten into like self-propelled competition. I ran in a half marathon yesterday morning, so I'm a competitor at heart, and I love challenging myself, and I honestly love the community within competitive sports. Sure there's rivalries, sure there's that competitive thing that happens, but the community of people and the family that's created within competition has just been my sweet spot and my happy place.
Can we read anything into this? You're here as a guest of Arrow McLaren SP. Some of those things that you listed would enable you to do that. You could go to Le Mans, you could maybe do the Bathurst 12-hour sports car race.
Great friends here. Certainly possibilities exist up and down the garage area with the various relationships I have. I'm just very happy that Zach invited me out. We've become great friends through the car swap that I did 2 years ago with Fernando, and accepted the invitation. He said he's coming to town, and I'm like, heck yeah, I'm going to come out and see everything.
So the most important thing, folks, that you can take from that is 2021, it's unclear, right?
It is unclear, but it should be fun.
And it's going to be fun. So watch this space is the message.
Great stuff from Lee Diffie, courtesy of NBC Sports with Jimmy Johnson. That was cool, guys.
He couldn't stop asking him. You know what I mean?
Heck of an athlete. I mean, he does a lot of training. He's a great bike rider. You've ridden with him a lot with Lance Armstrong. You guys just did a race with George Hincapie over the offseason.
Over the offseason, the guy he's a beast.
He's an animal.
He's a beast, and he runs fast too.
Yeah.
So we might do an Ironman together in 2021. You guys just keep an eye on it. We're having some plans.
I saw on Sunday morning ahead of Daytona qualifying and the Clash, he ran a half marathon in like an hour and a half. So that's pretty good pace.
That tells you.
So here's the plan for the day. We're not sure of the plan, essentially, because it's wet, it's cold, but I think we will still see some cars on track just to get an install lap and maybe some running at pace later today. The forecast is better for tomorrow, so this is the tentative schedule for the rest of the day. Stay tuned to social media, IndyCar.com, for further updates when cars are on track, and when that happens, we'll be back. For Tony Kanaan, Paul Tracy, Katie Hargett, Jake Query, I'm Kevin Lee. Thanks for joining us today from Circuit of the Americas.